Hey guys, how's everybody doing out there? Still trying to get a little used to this new setup I got going on. Hopefully I'm working all the kinks out and it's not too horrible. Happy New Year to everybody. All right. So, the most recent video that I uploaded today, I'm going to kind of start off light right now, guys, to try to let a few more people file in, okay? So, the most recent video that I uploaded today, had where I was talking about the duct detector. I mean, the original service call was a thermostat that was bad, but I think the more important part was when I talked about knowing the fire systems and how the duct detector can affect the fire system. And I think it's a very important thing to understand how to put fire alarms on test. It's something that we at my company have to do all the time. We make sure that our systems, before we work on an RTU unit, that we hold on just one second. Yeah, we make sure that we always call the fire alarm before we have the manager call the fire alarm company, put the system on test. Usually for like 6 hours is kind of like my rule of thumb, and then it'll automatically go off a test after 6 hours, so you can just put a time limit on it. So it's really important to understand because, like I mentioned in this video and a previous video, the last thing you want to do is get the fire department to show up. Now, most systems, if you shut off an RTU unit, it's not going to call the fire department. It's just going to put the system into a trouble condition. But there has been the instance where I was working at a shopping mall and I did put the system, for whatever reason, it was wired wrong and it put it into a fire condition and it was not good. Okay, so it's just always safe, to ask the management before you go and shut off RTU units, if they need to put the system on test, and have them do so. Okay, so it'll save you guys some headaches and possibly eliminate some problems, So guys that are just filing in right now, you haven't missed anything yet. I'm just kind of going over the last video that I was talking about. So again, the people that are just filing in, Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you guys are going to be safe tonight. Don't drink and drive, all that good stuff. So I am going to answer some questions. I've got some email questions that I'm going to address. I am going to show you guys a short little video that I have to kind of talk about what we were just talking about with the duct detectors and the trouble conditions. So I'm kind of monitoring the chat too to make sure everything's good. Are you guys hearing everything okay? Everything coming through good? Okay, cool. Right on. All right, so what I want to do is I want to go ahead and transition on over into this video. Again, we're talking about duct detectors and especially the trouble contacts in a duct detector, which is what could trigger the trouble condition in the fire alarm when you shut off the unit, okay? Yeah, Alexander, someone pulled out automatics and started shooting. You know what? In my area where I'm at, I'm close to a pretty bad neighborhood, and yeah, we could run into some problems with that kind of stuff, so... Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and transition on over to this video, guys, and then I'll come back right after the video, and then we'll talk a little bit more, okay? So this isn't a video that I've released or anything like that, so you guys aren't watching. This is something new that you guys are going to watch. So give me just a second and try to figure out how to transition this over, and we will get this started right about now. Okay, so on my trainer board here, I've got a duct smoke detector set up. And I have it set up so that we can simulate trouble conditions or alarm conditions, and I just want to explain the difference. Okay, the trouble condition is an instance where, depending on the detector, this particular detector, I can set it up to initiate a trouble condition if you were to remove this cover. So let's say that someone was doing some work on the duct detector and they left the cover off. It would simulate, or it would initiate a trouble condition, which would tell the alarm company that there's something wrong. Because if you left the cover of this detector off, theoretically it wouldn't sense smoke properly. The way that this thing works is that... Sorry guys, bear with me here. Still trying to get used to this, so hang on just one second. I apologize about that. I apologize, guys. Give me just one second. I'll get this right, I promise. So... let me figure this out real quick. Okay. Done. Go ahead and turn that on. Transition. That this cover makes a seal and forces air from one side One sec, guys. I'm sorry. Technical difficulties. Bear with me. I apologize, guys, here. Okay, so on my trainer board here, I've got a duct smoke detector set up, and I have it set up so that we can simulate trouble conditions or alarm conditions, and I just want to explain the difference. Okay, the trouble condition is an instance where, depending on the detector, I'm epically failing at this, guys. I thought I had this all figured out, and it is not working out the way that I wanted it to. Okay, so on my trainer board here, I've got a duct. So it's not going to full screen for you guys, right? I apologize, guys. So sorry. One more second. I will get this, I promise. Okay, give me 1 second here. Let me... duct smoke detector set up. One more sec here. I'm really sorry, guys. I thought I had this figured out, and it is being a pain in my ass right now. So I'm gonna get this though. So just 1 second here. Let me see here. So anyways, I'm gonna talk while I'm playing with this right now, so that way I'm not wasting your guys' time. On the duct detectors, you know, what I'm going to be going over is the trouble conditions that you run into on the duct detectors. When, kind of like what I'll reiterate again, when you're walking up to an RTU unit, what you want to do is you want to let the fire alarm company know that you're going to be working on the RTU unit. Let the manager know. They'll usually call the fire alarm company and let them know what's going on, and then we can then that way when you guys power down the unit, you won't get a trouble condition here. And as I'm still trying to figure this out, bear with me here. I'm probably going to lose half of you guys, but I will work this out. All right. And let's see here. Okay, so on my trainer board here, I've got... yeah, this is just not working out the way that I want it to. Well, that's just not going to work out. Are you guys don't see any video at all, huh? You guys just hear audio, right? Yeah, that's just what I thought. Yeah, that's what I'm having a problem with, is getting the big video to pop up on the screen. So, and that is why it's being a pain in the ass for me. So let me try one more thing here. Not that. Let's try that. Let me go ahead and try this, and this might work better. Let me try this last thing here and see if this works. If this doesn't work, we'll just have to figure something else out. I've got a duct smoke detector set up, and I have it set up so that we can simulate trouble conditions or alarm conditions, and I just want to explain the difference. Okay, the trouble condition is an instance where, depending on the detector, this particular detector, I can set it up to initiate a trouble condition if you were to remove this cover. So let's say that someone was doing some work on the duct detector and they left the cover off. It would simulate, or it would initiate a trouble condition, which would tell the... well, then that's just going to be an epic fail, and I'm just going to have to make that a normal video. Then I apologize, guys. That's what I was hoping to do, and of course it's not going to work out for me, so it's all good. We'll move on to the next thing. As you guys can, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my webcam so you guys can see what I'm talking about right here. Turn off my display capture. Transition my webcam over. Okay, there we go. All right. Yeah, sorry guys, I'm having a hard time getting the picture to pop up, but you can see the trainer board I have behind me. I've used that before in the past and explained the duct detector situation. So what I will do is what I'm trying to show right now, I'll release it as a video tonight, so it'll pop up. You guys can watch it. It'll just be a short one that you guys can watch at any given time, okay? But I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about it and explain what we're talking about. So I've already talked about the duct detectors, okay? And there's a way inside the duct detector that we can use the trouble contact or the supervisory contact inside the duct detector, and by putting a resistor in the circuit, we can simulate a trouble condition. So when the fire alarm company is looking for their control wiring going to the duct detector, they're monitoring 2 wires coming to that duct detector and only 2 wires, okay? So they basically are looking for a direct short to tell them that there is a fire condition, okay? And if there is a fire condition, there'll be the direct short, and then it'll usually set off the audible strobe alarms and all that good stuff, okay? But the other thing we need to be able to do is we need to be able to prove that the fire alarm circuit is still good, okay? So by proving the circuit, what I mean is, what happens if someone's working up in the attic and they sever the alarm wires, okay? If they sever the alarm wires to the duct detector and they don't create a direct short, the fire alarm company is never going to know, right? Theoretically, they would just see, no alarm at all. And there could be a fire condition in that RTU unit and it wouldn't alert the fire alarm company. Now, if, the restaurant was occupied, then obviously they'd call 911. But, the whole point of the duct detectors is to slow a fire down. It's never going to eliminate a fire, but it's usually going to turn off the RTU unit and slow it down essentially, okay? So what we would do is by placing a resistor, now it can change from alarm panel to alarm panel, but sometimes it's a 10K ohm resistor, okay, and it'll go across the alarm circuit, and it just proves that the circuit is there. So the resistor is not enough to trigger a direct short, but it's enough to show that 10K ohm. So the alarm panel is looking and it sees that resistor at all times, okay? So if we wire that resistor, so basically if we take the alarm contact, of which you'll see in this video when I upload it, if we take the alarm contact, which is a normally open contact, and we wire it into the supervisory contact, I'll explain that in a second, but if we wire it into the supervisory contact, then if there's a problem with the duct detector, it would make the resistor disappear from the circuit, and the alarm company would know that there's a trouble condition, but not necessarily a fire. Okay, so usually if there's a trouble condition, they will call and verify, hey, let the manager know, hey, you know what, we see a trouble condition, your RTU unit, something's going on, which can be helpful, because I made a funny joke inside the video, is that if you have a smart crackhead that's up there stealing the copper on the unit, they would shut off the unit, right? Because they don't want to get electrocuted. Well, when they shut off the unit, if we have that trouble contact wired in the way that I'll show in the video, then it would send that silent signal to the alarm company to let them know there's a trouble condition, okay? Now, that resistor also does something in that if one of the wires gets severed to the alarm panel, that resistor would also disappear from the circuit at the same time too, okay? So then it would let the alarm company know, hey, there's a problem. Now, the important thing to understand is that the alarm company typically doesn't know if there's a problem with the RTU unit. They don't know if a wire's been severed. They just see a trouble condition is all that they see, okay? So that trouble condition would, they would call and verify. So if one of those crackheads was up on the roof and he was a smart crackhead, and shut off the unit, then maybe the alarm company would notify the general manager. It just depends on the alarm company and the protocols they have set up. But in my area, they'll usually call the general manager in the middle of the night, especially if it's a bad area. They'll call and say, hey, we have a trouble condition with an RTU unit. And sometimes the general manager, if it's a real bad area, will say, hey, dispatch PD and have them look into it, So that's something to understand. Usually what happens is most of the duct detectors in my area are actually powered by the RTU unit. So your 24 volt power coming from the RTU unit is powering the duct detector. So if that duct detector loses power by you shutting off the RTU unit, then the trouble contact is going to open and that resistor would also disappear. So that's usually what happens when you power down a unit, and then you get, you'll have to, the alarm company will call or something like that. Okay. So it's important to understand how those duct detectors work. Again, I wish I had my video to show and visualize with you guys, but one of the really tricky things on the duct detectors is knowing and the most confusing thing for me is the supervisory or the trouble contact. Just remember, it's wired backwards. Okay, and when I say that, let's say the supervisory contact has a common, a normally closed, and a normally open. Okay, the common to normally open will be closed in a non-trouble condition. Okay, so what's written on the contact only happens in a trouble condition. So if it says common and normally closed, it's only normally closed when it's in a trouble condition. Okay, now all the other contacts on the detector, oh, thank you very much, Mike, 2959, I really appreciate it. Now, if you, sorry, I lost my train of thought there right there, but so, yeah, it's important to understand that trouble and or supervisory relay is backwards, okay? But then all the other contacts, the auxiliary A, the auxiliary Bs, those are just standard contacts. So, there's nothing backwards about those, all right? That's one of the biggest things when I was first wiring up a duct detector that we ran into is we thought we had bad duct detector after bad duct detector, and that actually wasn't the case. It was just that the supervisory contact was backwards, okay? If you read the installation instructions, which I hardly ever did at the time, now, and again, you guys will see in the video where I point out right in the instructions, it tells you that exact thing, that the trouble contact is wired backwards. So something to understand, okay? So another thing, and I'll get to some questions if you guys have them. A couple email questions I had. I thought this was a really interesting one. So I had a question from a technician that works on residential appliances, and he had a very nice email that applauded me for my videos, okay? But then he said, unfortunately, in his line of work, he really appreciates the fact that I always stress looking at the big picture in my videos. But unfortunately, in his line of work, because of the flat rate fees and stuff, he finds it very difficult to explain to the customer that they have other problems with their unit after he's quoted it out. Okay. And, his words to me were, it's difficult to get them to approve anything else after I've quoted out a condenser fan motor, for example. Okay. And, I emailed him back and I just said, look, I understand where flat rate can be confusing and that kind of stuff. Okay. But I really don't think that the appliance business is really too much different than the commercial side, which is what I do, because, we should be looking at the big picture and diagnosing for the big picture from the start. Now, I understand that sometimes a customer just wants, that the flat rate can get a little confusing. I don't deal with flat rate. I'm time and materials. But I still think that it's important that, just because we're a flat rate company, we still need to look at the big picture. So you need to have some, in my opinion, some disclaimers in there, like, hey, right now, the first thing that I find is a bad condenser fan motor. Bad condenser fan motor will cost this much. But here's the things that could be bad also because of the condenser fan motor. There's always a possibility we could have bad valves on my compressor. If it's a R134A system, there's always the possibility that the capillary tubes can be plugged up later if they're not already plugged up. That's the kind of stuff. And I think that adding disclaimers to your diagnosis and your quote would help you to be able to sell a permanent fix after you change the condenser fan motor. But I do see his dilemma in the flat rate diagnosis, okay, if that's the right way to phrase that. I see the dilemma, and that's why flat rate really doesn't work on the commercial side per se, especially when you're dealing with restaurants. But still, I still think we need to sell the big picture. And I'm not saying to sell them things that they don't need. I hope you guys get that from my videos. I'm not about ripping the customers off whatsoever. I'm about looking for the customer's best interest while doing my job properly. So that was one email. Okay, next thing that I wanted to bring up was I had another question, and this may seem simple to some of you guys, but I think it's an important thing for people to understand. I had a person email me that he was installing a rotolock valve on a compressor, and he wanted to know if he would use standard 15% brazing rod on the rotolock valve to weld it to the copper line. And I emailed him back, and I just said, hey, look, most rotolock valves, I honestly have never seen a copper rotolock valve. Okay, I've only seen steel and brass. And I explained to him that when you're working with dissimilar metals, that you're going to need to use a silver bearing solder that has more than I like to use 56% is the silver solder that I use, and a silver solder flux, that you got to put on the system too. Okay, before you braze that silver solder on there. So it's important to understand that when you are working with dissimilar metals, such as stainless steel, steel, copper, and brass, you know, that you need to use the proper brazing rods with those. I will say, I've had the opportunity to work with a few of their products, and I'm not going to give them a full-fledged review yet, but I do have to say that Solder Weld has come out with some really cool new products that I think are awesome. And I'm still testing out some of their stuff, so I'll have definitely a great review video. I'm still waiting for a microchannel coil so I can use their aluminum brazing rod on it. But I do like Solder Weld's brazing rod. It was brought to my attention from HVAC school, Brian Orr. You know, he was pushing that stuff really hard, and I was able to pick some up. Actually, Brian sent me some to try out, and I'm really blown away. It seems like a very high-quality product. The one cool thing I really like about the Solder Weld is their 15% brazing rod. It's very unique because it's a round rod, so it's really cool. But again, I haven't done a full review on it, so we'll see. Another really, and I'll get to the chat here in just a second. Another really, really good question that came up was pump down. Someone had sent me an email, and they had asked me, how come when you pump a system down, the head pressure does not go up? Okay. Now, he did not give me context. I'm assuming that he was talking about a refrigeration system with a receiver. And again, this may be normal review for you guys in the chat right now, but I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it. You know, a refrigeration system with the receiver, the condenser and the receiver are sized adequately to be able to store the whole refrigerant charge in the condensing unit while it's pumped down, or at least they should be sized correctly, okay? Sometimes if you use aftermarket condensing units, you all know we can run into those problems. But if a refrigeration system is sized correctly, you should be able to front seat the king valve on the liquid line receiver and let the compressor run. And what's going to happen is there's enough storage capacity in that receiver and that condenser that refrigerant can back up, and there's still plenty of room for that refrigerant to expand in there, and you can basically pump down the entire charge in there. And that would be why your head pressure would not rise. An important thing to pay attention to, and that's why I stress to people, you don't ever just put your low side service gauge on a system, especially when you're pumping it down. You need to put your high side service gauge on there too, because you need to be able to monitor those pressures to find out if the system's possibly overcharged and or possibly undersized to where you can't pump down the entire charge. And I have come across that quite a bit. So that's when you would see when it was pumping down, you would start to notice your head pressure starts to rise, and it keeps rising and it keeps rising. And I usually won't let it go past about 325 PSI. And, you know, if it gets any higher than that, then I'll you know, go ahead and shut it off and then recover the remaining charge. Okay. So just a quick question I wanted to answer. The last thing that I wanted to bring your attention is, I just want to say, obviously, Happy New Year to you guys. And thank you guys very much. This has been a really interesting year for me. I've said it many times. I'm just a service technician. Okay, I own I co-own a small business here in Southern California, and I started making these videos to help my own technicians. Okay, I had a situation where I had to hire 3 technicians pretty close together, and they were all good technicians, but they just didn't know the way that we did things. Okay, so I started making a few videos with the interesting things that I ran into and how I handled them. And that's what started this whole me making these videos on YouTube, okay? After seeing everybody else's videos, I decided to go ahead and make the videos public, and the channel just blew up from there, okay? My channel officially started in November. I had like 1 video, I think, I uploaded, and I maybe had like 2 subscribers. By April, I had 100 subscribers, and then here we are, December 31st, and I just crossed 13,000 subscribers today. And that is all because you guys have taken the time to watch my videos and subscribe to my channel. And I just want to say thank you very, very much. Okay. It's humbling to see that. Now, I don't make these videos still to this day to make money. Don't get me wrong. I do make a little bit of money from YouTube, but that's not the reason why I do this, because the amount of time that I spend on these videos, the money that I have made does not, you know, cover that time. I spend hours a day, and I'm not asking for a pity party. I'm just saying I make these videos to try to share the little bit of knowledge that I have with you guys, okay? I've made lots of mistakes in my career, and I'm trying to share those mistakes in hopes that you guys don't make those same mistakes, okay? So again, thank you guys very, very much, okay? Really, really appreciate it. So I'm going to go over to the chat and see if there's any questions that I need to answer, guys, okay? I'm going to start back at the top, so just give me a second and I'll work my way down, guys, okay? And thanks again, Mike2959, for the super chat. I really appreciate it, man. Okay, so let me go down here and see what I'm missing. And again, I apologize, guys, about the whole mix-up with the video thing, okay? So, guys, if Nightbot is kicking you guys out, I'm sorry. I don't, I may have a setting on there wrong. I noticed that it kicked you out, JYPHC. I do know that there's a setting in there to not put links in here, so I don't know if that's what you were trying to do, so I apologize. Okay. All right, keep going back up here, guys. All right, let's see what I find. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so Ray, you said answer to belt issue. If the fan is off, it could smoke will travel to any positive airflow. The detector is usually in the return, but sometimes in the supply. I don't know the context of your statement that you made there, but I do see that you pointed out a good thing, and I got another question on my Facebook comments today, was where should the duct detector be installed? It depends on your codes. I've seen them, depending on the municipality and the city that they're in, they'll be installed on the supply and the return, but typically we see them on the return air side of the AC. Now, I'm not saying that's the only place to put them. They will work on the supply or the return. I think that if you have two detectors, it's better than one detector because you could potentially catch a problem before anything else, okay? I will say the downside to putting duct detectors in the return is if you work with any restaurants that serve fajitas, when they walk by the return duct, you'll get a nuisance smoke detector trip because the fajitas will get sucked right up into there. So I had a particular restaurant chain that was really big on fajitas, and what they would do is put like a sizzle sauce on top of their cast iron skillet that they would serve the fajitas on, and that would make it smoke and sizzle, and they would walk out to the dining room right underneath the return air grill and constantly set off the duct detectors. And that was just a huge thing because that brand's biggest thing at the time was their sizzle and fajitas. So, you know, they weren't going to stop that. So it was just a nuisance left and right problem of going out, having to reset duct detectors. That was a pain in the butt. So, all right, going to keep going down here. Yes, hidden resolve. You asked what type resistor. So the resistor is actually the alarm company's problem. The alarm company supplies the resistor. I would not go in there trying to change resistors. And in all actuality, duct detectors are a very gray area because you don't ever want to mess with the alarm company's wiring because it's gray on whether or not it can be considered a life safety device. I'm sure that insurance companies would be a little sketchy about you messing with them, but at the same time, in my area, the alarm companies, they will call you and say, or they'll basically tell us to go change the duct detectors and that they don't touch those. But yet it's their wiring, you know, some of the wiring going into the duct detector is theirs. So, you know, it's a very, very gray area as far as what size resistors, that's determined by the panel. So the alarm panel determines what size resistor you need to use. I will say that most of the alarm panels that I've seen, I don't ever open alarm panels, but I just know that most of the ones that are in my restaurants use 10K ohm resistors. So I will keep a 10K ohm resistor on my truck, but I usually, just for an emergency situation, but I've never used it. If I ever ran into a problem, I would schedule a meetup. And in fact, I'm having to do that right now at a certain restaurant that I went out to where we had a bad duct detector. And after I changed the duct detector, I found that the alarm would never get signaled basically. And there was, nothing wrong in my detector. So there's a problem with the alarm wiring. So that's a situation where I'm having the management schedule a meetup with myself and the alarm technician, and then we're going to troubleshoot the problem together. Now, I can 99% tell you that it has nothing to do with me, but I like to show up just in case, so that way when that alarm technician gets out there, he doesn't say, oh, you need to call the HVAC guy. And then we have a game back and forth over the next few weeks of both of us going back and forth. It's just easier. Usually on my second visit, I'll schedule an alarm meetup and have the alarm technician show up with me. And then that way I can be there while he's troubleshooting. And then if he has any doubt or any suspicion as to the problem being mine, I'm there to fix it and we can eliminate the problem at once. So, okay, going to keep going here. Alexander, you said that in Walmarts, they tie them into the building management system. Yep. Gordon Farmer, you're asking if there's any redundancies in the alarm. I could use a little more context to that to understand exactly what you're asking me there. Yeah, Kevin Thomas, crackheads have given up on copper theft. Yeah, copper's gone so low that, yeah, it's kind of not worth it to them half the time. But when it was at like $5 a pound for scrap copper, you know, for number one, that was when things were going hot. So definitely. I will say that most of the time, there's no such thing as a smart crackhead. Yeah, I guess that's one way to put it, Joe65. So let's see. I'm going down through the comments, guys, to see what we got here. All right. For those of you guys that are just coming in here or new people that came in, we're talking about duct detectors and the trouble conditions. That's what I did talk about. So, and then now I'm just kind of going through answering questions. So, okay, so keep going down through here, see what else I'm missing, guys. Reading through the chat. Actually, I can move this in front of me so that way it looks like I'm actually looking at you guys, kind of. Let me keep going here. Seeing what I'm missing. Tom Trace, I'm assuming you said 45%. That's what you guys usually use. Yeah, I'm usually a 56% person, but I have used 45% silver solder in the past, and it does work fine. So, and I've heard, Alexander, I've heard a lot of people talk about the blue rods. My problem with the flux-coated rods is that I just don't know how to use them very well. I prefer paste flux because the flux-coated rods, what I usually tend to have is that the flux will break off before it gets into the joint, and then I just have a problem with it. So I prefer paste flux, but again, I'm not knocking any of the flux coated rods. It's just my inexperience with them, and I just haven't had good luck with them. But like I said, I do have a whole kit of the new solder weld stuff, and they have a couple flux coated rods in there, so I am going to give them a shot. So, and see. Hey guys, Happy New Year to the guys that are saying that. I really appreciate it. You know, the shit or the cruddy thing is that I got a service call about an hour before the live stream, and I put it off. So after I get done with the live stream, I'm probably gonna have to go on the service call, which kind of stinks. So, all right. Yeah, AK does have a code for buying solder weld. So yeah, you look on AK's channel or DM him, and he'll tell you whatever his code is to get hooked up with the solder weld stuff. So, all right. No, Otis asked if I was going to the AHR Expo. I am not. I kicked myself in the butt for not setting that up sooner, but no, I'm not going to make it to the AHR Expo this time. So, thanks a lot, Ray. I really appreciate that. All right. Yeah, Greg Burnett, you had said, are you? I'm assuming that you're saying to make sure your sample tube is pointed in the right direction and the cap is on the end of the tube of the duct smoke detector. Yes, that is very important. You need to follow the instructions on the sampling tubes. There does need to be usually a short tube that's about 4 inches inside one end of the duct detector, and then there's usually a long tube that should run all the way to the other end of the duct. And you do have to be careful when you have the sampling tubes that are like 6 foot long, because they need to have support on the other end. Usually what people will do is they will make them just long enough to where it just penetrates the duct, and then they'll seal it on the other end. That way it doesn't get any outside air in there. Because when you get the really long sampling tubes, the duct detector is just plastic, and over time, the weight from that sampling tube will break the duct detector. So it's important to make sure you support your sampling tubes properly. If you just follow the instructions in the duct detector, it explains all that. So, forgive me, I don't understand how to pronounce your name. It's OTHRDA. I don't know what that stands for, but you said, hey, new here, what advice can I give to someone trying to learn? Someone trying to learn, I would suggest read every book. You know, YouTube is an interesting way to do things. it's funny, ironic that I'm here cautioning you against YouTube, yet I'm making YouTube videos. What I would suggest you do if you want to check the credibility of a YouTube video, and you can't always trust what you hear on YouTube, okay? But there is lots of good information out there. But look at the comments. The comments are a great way to see if people are really trashing the person that has made the video, then you might want to steer clear from that. But I will say you need to be cautious about that too, because I can go in and delete comments from my channel. I don't. I've deleted a few comments just because they mentioned the restaurant locations that I work at, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But that's the only comments I delete. I don't ever delete criticism or anything like that. I embrace it. So, but you do have to be careful, okay? But I would suggest reading books, depending on what side of the trade you want to get into. Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians by Dick Wers is one of my favorite books. But I will say that's kind of an intermediate book. It's meant to teach refrigeration to technicians that already understand air conditioning. So if you are completely green and don't understand anything, that I suggest you start with something like Refrigeration Technologies, the RACT manual. I think it's Refrigeration, Air Conditioning Technologies or something. There's lots of good books out there. And then also check out HVAC School with Brian Orr. He has lots of great tech tips, and he does a podcast, lots of great information. And then at the end of any of my YouTube videos, I usually suggest or recommend some other YouTubers that have good content. So watch till the end of my videos and you'll see that. And those guys are usually pretty good stuff. So, all right. Ryan Leary, holy moly, Hidden Resolve. Thank you very much, sir. Wow. Damn, dude. I don't even know what to say, dude. Thank you very much. Ryan Leary, how many techs do I have? Right now, I'm running 4 trucks, including myself. So I'm a small service company. Hidden Resolve, I don't even know what to say, dude. Thank you so very much, man. Wow, blown away, dude. So yeah, we're a small company, Ryan. Just, restaurant refrigeration. We used to be a lot bigger. And when I say bigger, the biggest I ever had was 6 trucks going, and it was kind of crazy. I don't ever want to get bigger than 6 techs again. I want to stay small while still having growth, but I want to be able, we're a family company. So we try to make sure everybody gets days off and we have time. So, we try to don't get too big, essentially, if you understand what I'm saying. So, okay. Keep going down through here. Let's see. Yes, you can cut the sampling tubes. Nando 530. I've done that in a pinch. Just make sure you do it properly and that you can get the end cap in them. So if you want, what you can do, but just make sure that the sampling tube holes aren't on the outside of the ductwork. But yeah, if you want to buy a longer than normal sampling tube and cut it, heck yeah, dude. It's just a piece of EMT conduit. So you can just cut off the piece, make sure you get rid of the burrs, put the end cap in it, and yeah, you're good to go, man. Be cautious because a lot of the new duct detectors have a different sampling tube than the old school duct detectors. So remember, when you go to change a duct detector, make sure you take out new sampling tubes with you. So, yeah, Ray pointed out that you do need to make sure you look at the gaskets too. Yeah, it's very important that the gaskets be on there. Just make sure you guys are following the instructions. There's lots of good installation instructions there. So, okay, so what else am I missing? I'm going to go back up in here. Brian Milburn says, NorCal Dave, Shop Talk, Dick Wers book. It is amazing. Yep. Those are all great ideas. So, no, I do not know, Andres, any books about marine engineers. I apologize, sir. I wish I did. Gordon Farmer, you said Google helps. Google does help, man. There you go. Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Technologies. Bill Whitman, Bill Johnson. Yep. Great book. And then also, oh man, I'm trying to think of the Eugene Silberstein. I believe he's one of the authors of the RACT manual. On a side note, I am part of the Arrowhead RSES chapter here in Southern California. We meet at San Bernardino Valley College. And we are actually going to be having a winter conference where Eugene Silberstein is going to be giving a discussion on air balance. So if any of you guys are local to me, reach out to me and I can get you information on that conference. The tickets aren't too expensive. We usually don't we don't really make a profit off of it. It just basically covers our costs. But as the RSES, that's Refrigeration Service Engineers Society, we have this is like a special conference. We usually don't charge for anything, but just to plug my chapter, we do meetings the second Tuesday of every month. They're completely free. You do not have to be a member to attend our meetings. We supply food for you guys if you want to come. We have all kinds of different topics every single month. So if you're interested in the RSES, I would look up rses.org. Great training resource. And they have chapters all over the United States. If you don't have an active chapter in your neighborhood, they also have a great website that has lots of great information on it. But if you can find a chapter here in Southern California, we have the Long Beach chapter that's very active, and we have the Arrowhead chapter in San Bernardino that is very active. Both of them, are very, very active chapters and have meetings. I believe the Long Beach chapter is the second Wednesday of every month, and we are the second Tuesday, if I remember right. But if you're interested in either the Long Beach or the Arrowhead chapter in San Bernardino, send me an email and I can get you more information on that. Okay. Sorry, my plug is over now. That was my commercial for the day. So yeah, Ryan, you guys are 6 techs. Yeah. It's hard because Ryan was asking, if you guys didn't already see, he was asking me how many techs I have. It's hard because we're a small company and we try to treat it small. For instance, we don't work off of a PO system. Okay. That's one thing but I have to trust my techs. And I mean, I still look at invoices and different things, but a lot of big companies work off a PO system so people don't steal from them. Not that I don't want to do a PO system. It's just a pain in the butt, and I don't want to have to I don't want it to be that difficult. If I have to worry about my employees, it's just not worth it to have them as employees. So, we like to stay small so that we don't have to worry about that stuff. We try to control the stock in our vans. We try not to overstock, but at the same time, the guys, they have a credit card and they got to buy what they got to buy, So it's just one of those things. It's a fine line. The bigger you get, if we ever do get bigger, then I don't know. I may even eventually have to go to a PO system with the techs that I have now, but I trust the techs that I have now. So it's just one of those things where I'd rather not if I don't have to. So, all right. Happy New Year to everybody. I really appreciate it, guys. So, okay. Going to keep going through the comments, looking what I'm missing here. Do I have any guidelines for how many hours to quote for repairs? Alex, okay, my guidelines to quote repairs are basically based off of my ability to do those repairs. So, I have some other technicians that may take a little bit longer, so usually I'll add an hour or two to my repairs. As far as guidelines go, it's a hard thing. I mean, I don't know what kind of work you're doing, commercial, residential. Rules of thumb, if I'm going to do a compressor, it's quoted at 8 hours for like an air conditioning system or something like that. If it's a small little reach-in cooler, it's quoted at 6 hours, but then we're going to add in, all the materials that we're going to use and that kind of stuff. But as far as a general number, I don't really have that. If you have more questions, I can probably address that more in an email. If you want to send me an email, anybody has any questions that they want to send me an email, it's hvacrvideos@gmail.com. And you guys can email me anytime and I'll try to answer any questions you guys have. Okay. Okay, yeah, NorCal does have a great vlog. The cool thing I like about NorCal Dave is actually, I watched his videos for years, and I wish that I had his happy attitude that he always has and his sense of humor. I wish that I had that. The same thing, I wish, that I had AK, Andrew Greaves. I wish I had his filming abilities and even though he does more motivational videos, he really can explain things very well too. When he does do those videos, every once in a while he'll have a topic where he'll explain how something works, and it's like, man, that guy has great abilities to do that. And there's lots of other great YouTubers out there too. You got my buddy Rick with Northwest Ohio HVAC, and then you got Chris Cassie with oh gosh darn it, I forgot your channel name, Chris. I'm sorry. It's I'll think of it in a minute. I apologize. But I always recommend them at the end of my videos. But those are great channels too. There's all kinds of great channels. And it just depends on what you're looking for. If you want to get humor and, there's all kinds of guys out there, guys. We can talk about that forever. I don't want to waste your guys' time on that. Okay, going to keep going down through the chat here. Okay. Yeah, Dave Tatro says, when it comes to quotes for new guys, always cover yourself. You never know what's going to happen. That's exactly correct. And always have, I always say to cover your ass in your quotes. Yeah, Northwest Ohio is Rick. And then CSC Refrigeration is Chris Cassie. That's a great one too. You just have to understand he has a Boston accent, but dude's a cool guy, very nice guy. So, okay. So how many years of experience do I have? Am I field trained guy or went to school to learn about HVACR? Okay, Dimitri. So for those of you that already know this, I'm just going to say it again. I grew up working for my father. Him and I are partners now in this business, but when I was a kid, I used to work with him in the summertime when I was off school. My parents were split up as a kid, divorced. So a lot of times when my dad would come get me, he would come get me like right after I got out of school, but then he would continue to do service calls for a couple more hours. So I can remember as young as, I don't know if I remember, but I've been told as young as like 3 years old going to service calls. Things are definitely different now. I couldn't take a 3-year-old with me to work anymore because of liabilities and insurance stuff. But back then, dude, I was climbing roofs. I was changing swamp cooler pads, changing filters on ACs as a little kid. Now, junior high, I decided that I wanted absolutely nothing to do with this trade. I hated it. It was too hot, especially working in the Inland Empire where we get in excess of about 105 degrees average in the summertime. It was just too hot for me. I didn't understand it. I went through high school thinking I was going to be an auto collision mechanic. I took like auto body class all 4 years of high school and then went to work at a body shop my junior and senior year. And it was at the end of my senior year that I decided, I looked at my boss one day. He's a really, really nice guy, but I just didn't want to do that anymore. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. And I came to work for my dad at the time full time. So that was about 2002. And it's been going ever since. Him and I partnered up a few years ago. So now I'm co-owner in the business and we just run the company together now. So I learned in the field, but at the same time, when I started officially in 2002, I went to trade school. I went to my local community college, Mount San Antonio Community College in Walnut, took night classes, usually like 2 classes a semester. Never actually fully finished like a certificate or a degree or anything. I think I was like 1 class shy or something like that. I think I needed to take welding and like technical math or something like that. But so I learned in the field from another coworker that was working with us. I learned from my dad and I went to school at the same time. And then since then, I've just made a lot of mistakes and learned from them. So, and that's here where I am today. So I'm not the perfect technician. I don't know everything. I just, am good at learning from my mistakes, basically. So, all right, let me go back to the chat. Okay, yeah, I don't know, Randy Laz. I saw that going around social media about a refrigerator exploding down in Florida. That seemed a little excessive, but who knows, man? I don't know. I'd like to see the report on that if someone ever says exactly what happened. Jack, thanks for coming in on the live stream, man. I really appreciate it. Okay. 2 more subscribers and Chris will be at 13,000 about to whiz. Brian, for whatever reason, YouTube is behind. I'm actually at 13,000 subs. For whatever reason, it's not showing you guys, but I get a different subscriber count that's not delayed. And last I looked at it, I was at 13,008. So that was crazy. Really appreciate it. Okay. Yes, I do live in California, and I'm sorry. It looks like the moderator Nightbot blocked you, Tiny Man the Beast. I'm assuming it's for putting in a link. I don't know if that's what it was, but oh no, it just says I went to Mount Sac. Yes, I did go to Mount Sac, Tiny Man the Beast. I'm sorry. I thought it kicked you out, or it said it timed you out for something. Why? Oh, it's because you used too many exclamation points. That's why. Sorry, bud. All right. And then now it says no link, so I apologize. Okay. Oh, right on. Very cool. From Australia, someone's watching this. That's really cool. Okay, so do you guys have any more questions? Gosh, I wish I could show that video I wanted to show you guys. I freaking worked on that all day, too. Dang it. You guys see the training board behind me at the beginning of the live stream. I was trying to show a video that I made about troubleshooting the trouble contacts on the duct detector, and unfortunately, I'm just going to have to upload it to my channel. So pay attention to my channel after the stream, and I'll upload the video. I'll go ahead and make it an extra one for tonight. Chris E., you asked, what is the service call for? The service call is for some cook's drawers in the back of a kitchen. And you ask why I would go out to that on New Year's Eve. Well, the service call came in around 1 o'clock this afternoon. And today, everybody took the day off. So I was the person that was on call. So that was the only call that came in. But when it came in at 1, I was just doing the math in my head on how long it might take, so I put the call off. So that's why I'm going to go after the stream, because I didn't want to miss the stream. Normally, if someone called about their cook drawers at 6 o'clock at night, I wouldn't go, because just cook drawers. If it was a walk-in or a freezer, I would go. But this is one of those situations where, you know, I'm the one that put the call off. They called in at 1. I should have gone then, but I'm actually going to try to call them and talk them out of it. But the problem is that they're going to want me tomorrow, but tomorrow's double time. So either I go tomorrow morning, we'll see. I'll deal with them here in a little bit. So, Bird 203, have you ever gotten robbed by a customer or not getting paid right or equipment stolen? Heck yeah, I've gotten, I don't know about robbed, but I've had customers file bankruptcy on us. We've had general contractors up and just disappear. We've had all kinds of stuff like that. I've had general contractors file bankruptcy. Yeah, it's no bueno. We try not to do new construction because of that reason. We get burned by too many general contractors. But I've had restaurant chains. I don't do work for them anymore, so I can say their name, but El Torito Mexican Restaurants. They own Acapulco. They own Chevy's, all those. They filed bankruptcy on us like 10 years ago. We lost a bunch of money then. We haven't done work for them really since, but yeah, that was a bummer. That was a lot of money. Okay. Tough working on units during lunch hours. Yeah, definitely tough working on units during lunch hours. And that was one of the things with the service call that the restaurant called me, is I tried to say, like, hey guys, you know, we're going to go into it's going to be busy. Like I basically flat out tell them this is a 6-drawer cook's drawer unit, you know, underneath their grill. And I go, you guys, I got to take every drawer out. I just basically give them worst case scenario. I'm assuming all the coils are iced up. So your cooks have to get out of my way. I need to pull all the drawers out, and all the food has to come out of that box for me to work on it. And then that's what I'm going to tell them when I call them right now and say, so are you sure when we're coming out today? You know, I have a feeling they're going to say yes. And then I'm going to go out there and they're going to say, oh no, we can't have you in here. And then they're going to want me to come back. But that's just the life of dealing with restaurants sometimes. Do smoke detectors age? Doug Brown asks. You know, if a smoke detector is properly taken care of, I would say that it should last for quite some time. The one thing that happens with duct detectors or smoke detectors is that they're not maintained. Nobody ever maintains a duct detector unless you're working in like a hospital situation or a high-end client. So on a duct detector, usually on the older ones, they would have like a little protective screen over the sampling tubes, and those protective screens would disintegrate and then get sucked into the detector head and cause problems. They're usually made of foam, like on this microphone cover, and they would disintegrate and just get all crazy and everywhere. The other thing that happens is if you have a duct detector and an RTU unit that's really greasy, it'll get impacted with grease. If that's the case, you just need to change the detector. Detectors are cheap enough, in my opinion, that it's easier just to change them out than to spend a bunch of time trying to maintain them. There's nothing worse than nuisance duct detector calls, because if it's like triggering a fire condition, sometimes in the restaurants, a fire condition is going to set off the audible strobes and the lights and everything in the restaurant, and people might get scared and evacuate the building. So if you are unsure, at least the way that I approach them, if I'm unsure about them, I typically will let facilities know, hey, you know what, we just need to change this detector just to get rid of the problem and get rid of any doubt. I think the detectors usually cost the restaurant like $160, so they're usually pretty cheap. So. But I'm not saying you just need to change every single one. I'm just saying when you start to run into problems, if I'm seeing intermittent problems with them, it's, in my opinion, I'll bring it up to the restaurant and give them the option. But usually I say, let's just change it and eliminate the headache there. So, okay, Jack Selby Dyson. So where do you start on your HVAC journey? What I would suggest you do is research your local community college, see if they have an HVAC program. Okay, sign up and take a class. See if it's something you're interested in. I would suggest you go start knocking on doors a couple weeks after you've started the class and see if anybody will hire you as an apprentice. You're definitely going to be better off showing up to someone's door, showing initiative by already enrolling in trade school. I'm not knocking the trade schools that train you in 6 months and that kind of things, but those are very, very expensive, and you usually have to pay a lot of money for those. Not knocking them. If that's the route you want to go, there's all kinds of cool, you know, trade schools that are private, and, you know, some of them probably give great educations, but community college would probably be a good start for you, because usually you can get a class for like $400, $500. I'm assuming, it's been a while since I've been to community college, but I'm assuming $400 or $500 a class, or a unit or whatever it is. And then you just got to buy books, and And, by doing the community college route, say you get 2 classes done and you realize you don't want to do this, then you're only out, $1,000. If you sign up for a trade school, I don't know how that works with refunds and different things. So something to think about. Okay. But there's lots of schools out there. I would suggest get enrolled in one and then go knock on some doors and ask for an apprenticeship position. So, okay. Bird 203. Have I ever had to fix a restaurant equipment that flooded the building? Have I ever had to fix restaurant equipment that flooded the building? I don't know if I quite understand your question there. Could you rephrase that for me? Make a little sense. Jack Selby, it doesn't matter that you live in England, bud. Either way, man, I think that you definitely have got to have some kind of a trade school. You guys got to have community colleges, right? That's what we have out here in the States. They're called junior colleges. I'm assuming you guys have those there. If not, just see if there's a trade school that you can enroll in. Or, you may get lucky and just be able to apply for an apprenticeship position. I don't know how you guys are dealing with in the UK, but here in the United States, we are massively short for technicians right now. So we're having to hire people left and right that are not experienced at all. I think in the United States right now, some of the numbers that I've heard in the past were like 60 to 70% of our industry is going to be retiring within the next 5 years. So think about those numbers and think about all the new technology we have in our industry and all the new stuff coming out and all that experience that's leaving our trades. That's scary. I think skilled trades in general are insanely bad right now as far as quality workers and different things. So, okay, going to keep going. Yeah, Jack Selby, I think you're on the right track if you're already an electrician, man. Go for it, dude. Okay. Yeah, hospitals are, oh yeah. Yeah, Brian Milburn said he set off an alarm at a nursing home. Alarms, lights, doors slammed shut. Worst feeling ever. I was in a shopping mall and I took a cover off of a duct detector and it turned on all the emergency exhaust fans in the entire shopping mall and then set off the alarms all over the entire shopping mall. That was not fun because you're hearing all these strobe lights and everything. Security's coming running. That was not fun. Yeah. Depending on what you're working on too, you might have fire dampers that could be released and all kinds of different stuff. So, Ray, I did not have to pay any money for setting off mine. So, all right. Good for you, Freddie. Your 4th year apprenticeship. Awesome, man. Andres Laskins, you're asking what kind of a salary. So typically, I'm assuming just we get paid by the hour for the most part. Okay, most of the time you're not going to get a salary here per se, but I understand what you're asking. In Southern California, HVAC technicians are probably an apprentice is probably going to start about $18 an hour, and the sky's kind of the limit on as high as you'll go. But I would say you probably top out at about $45 to $50 an hour as a technician. So, it just depends on the company, and you get into the big industrial stuff, and that's when you're going to start making 50 plus an hour, big bucks. So, hello everybody, HVACR Knoxville. Hey man. All right. Oh, HVACR truck. I was wondering why, because I was like, wait a minute, I've seen your name come through, and then, okay. So yeah. All right. Okay, so why do some restaurants and businesses tie the door alarms to the HVAC system? Well, because they typically encompass, it's going to be a money-saving thing, right? Because they don't want to have a separate alarm monitoring company for the fire alarm and a separate alarm monitoring company for the burglar alarm. So they typically just tie them together. So the burglar and fire alarm are tied together. Now remember, in the HVAC system, that duct detector, the alarm is just monitoring the duct detector. The duct detector is ours as technicians. We're the ones that typically work on it, at least in my area. And the alarm company just monitors it. But it's just a price thing, so they don't have to have 2 separate systems monitoring the fire and burglar. So, yeah, I would not imagine that was good, Doug Brown. My mall did not evacuate. Security came before they called the fire department and everything. So, I don't know, Jack. I don't know if I want to hire an apprentice right now. That's a hard one, man. All right. I kind of probably need to, but no, I have not worked on Carter cases from the UK, Oscar. Really, Don? That's really interesting that the water hose set off the smoke detectors. That's very interesting. I don't think you did anything wrong there. I mean, you were just using a water hose with hot water and the steam. Maybe you had a, I've never, yeah, that's interesting. So the return must have been right by the AC. I guess I could see that maybe, you know, that's an interesting one. Yeah. Okay, Sean Price made up a really good point. He said he hit the silent alarm in a walk-in at a Joe's Crab Shack once. Okay. Been there, done that. I explained that in my most recent video. If you guys, I took you guys into the walk-in. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It was the Linux RTU unit not working. It was the thermostat on the thumbnail picture. So that's where I kind of was talking about duct detectors today, was because of that. But the most restaurants will have a panic alarm, usually in the dining room under a register or something like that, and then usually in a cash register, that is. And then usually in the walk-in cooler or walk-in freezer, they'll have a panic alarm. You want to be very cautious about the panic alarms. If you're going to be doing any work near the panic alarms, you always want to put the system on test. You want to make sure the manager understands that you need the panic alarm on test. And then they'll have to call the fire or the alarm monitoring company and say, I've got a technician here. We need the panic alarm on test. Usually what happens with the panic alarms is the police will typically come, especially if you're in a bad area. They'll come code blue, meaning no lights, no sirens. They come 911 rushing out there because the panic alarm typically means that someone is getting robbed with, you know, at gunpoint or something. Okay, so usually what they'll do is they'll set up the walk-in coolers as a safe room. A lot of times that's why you'll see a deadbolt that can be locked from the inside. It usually has like a quick release. So you run inside the walk-in, you activate the deadbolt, boom, slams the door shut, and you can hit the panic alarm and then hide inside the walk-in cooler. That's the theory, okay? Now, what happens is, I've done it too, where I was changing hinges on a walk-in door, and I had no idea what a panic alarm was. And I was banging on the door, you know, fixing the hinges, and the panic alarm must have gotten set off somehow. I never touched it. It was in the city of San Bernardino. San Bernardino is not a very safe, comfortable city. It's got a lot of crime. So the police showed up. The manager came running into the walk-in saying, what's going on? Next thing you know, the police came in. The sergeant walked in, asked me to go ahead and step out of the walk-in, asked me to step outside, and proceeded to interview me outside. When I got outside, there was a helicopter out front. I don't even know how many police cars. It was not a pretty sight. I explained to them I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, I didn't touch the panic alarm. He was not happy with me. Since then, I've seen panic alarms set off before too. Same thing. So you always want to be cautious. The police do not like when those panic alarms are set off as a nuisance. So it's very important as technicians that we understand what they are, where they are, and how to disarm them. Don't ever try to take them apart. That's the alarm company's thing. That's a liability thing if you ever touch a panic alarm. Leave them alone. But you just always want to put the system on test before you work with that stuff. So not a good thing. All right. Okay. Let me keep going down here. Is the Nightbot bugging you guys? Telling you to give it a thumbs up? All right. Okay. Install a new customer in a walk-in unit. All right, guys, we are at about the 1 hour mark. So unless you guys have any more questions, I'm going to go ahead and end this so that we can have the rest of our New Year's off. If you guys want to throw any more questions into the chat real quick, I'll give it another second and see if I'm missing anything. If not, we're going to go ahead and end this, guys. Okay, what brand in refrigeration from a reliability standpoint stands out as better made? True, Continental, etc. Okay, my favorite brand right now is going to be Hvacr. Hvacr is my number one. And then Tralson is going to be my number two. And then I would say it's a tie between True and Delfield. Continental's a decent brand. I don't work with them enough. So, you know, those are my favorites. Now, I'm not knocking any of the other ones, but those are my favorites. What's interesting is that True Refrigeration or True Manufacturing used to be the worst brand in my opinion. But since all the Korean brands came out, True was bumped up a bunch of notches. And I do got to give True props because last I heard, they're still making their boxes in America. I don't know if that's the case as of today, but that's kind of cool. You know, not many manufacturers manufacture in the United States anymore. So got to give that to True if that's still the case. Hoshizaki for ice machines is my favorite, but I'm very, very comfortable and okay with Manitowoc ice machines too. That's just a personal preference, to each their own. I've seen Ice-O-Matic machines and Scotch machines outlast Manitowocs and Hoshizakis. So it's just a preference thing. So, all right. Guys, I'm probably going to go ahead and end this out. You guys got any more questions? Go ahead and send me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. And I think that's going to be it, guys. Specific HVAC books, I'll grab this last one. Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians is my favorite book. So written by Dick Wurz. Great book. So thank you guys again for 13,000 subscribers. That's because of you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to come in here on a New Year's Eve. Happy New Year's to everybody. And any more questions, guys, that I'm missing, just send me an email, okay? hvacrvideos@gmail.com, okay? Happy New Year, guys. And we're going to go ahead and close this out. And, yeah, I'm just going to, well, hopefully if I don't have to go to that service call, I'm going to be hanging out too. So, all right, guys, be safe. Happy New Year.